everyone, and welcome to the final day of IWMW 2018. I am Carly Hollis from the University of St Andrews, and I will be chairing this morning, and we have got 3 fantastic sessions lined up. First of all, there are some announcements to make. The first of those is obviously this is our final day here, and you should hopefully have all checked out of your accommodation already. If you have not done that, if you could just leave your key card on the registration table that is out in the foyer, that would be fantastic. And if you don't want to take your lanyard away with you, if you could also just leave those on the table as well. So that is it. The second thing is if you need to book transport to a station or to anywhere, it's probably worth doing that now. I think there are some taxi numbers on Twitter if anyone should need them, or if there aren't, if someone could put some on Twitter. I know that there were some floating around in the HE Slack channel. Other things I need to say, evaluation form. You will see up on the slide behind me, there is a short link, a quick link to the 2018 evaluation form. It is super important that we get feedback from you, so if you please could fill in that evaluation form, that would be fantastic. And particularly if you're a first-time attendee, if you could fill in that evaluation form, we would really, really appreciate it. Other things, after this session we will have a coffee break. That coffee break is your last opportunity to put something up on the board about regional groups. So if you are interested in a regional group, please do put one of those nice sticky things up on the board there. That would be great. Other things, the videos of the conference.
Oh, this one.
Sorry, guys. Do I need to repeat any of that? All of it? Good. Other things, the videos from the conference will be going up over the next couple of weeks, first in kind of entire sessions and later in individual talks. So if there is anything that you want to share with any of your colleagues or anyone else, they should be going up in the next couple of weeks. And the final thing that I have to say is that if anyone is leaving early, there are likely to be some announcements about the future in this afternoon sessions. So if you do need to leave early, it probably will be worth keeping an eye on the Twitter feed to hear some of the news that's going to be announced later. I think that's it. So the first talk that we have this morning is super exciting. It's from Isla Gordon from the University of Southampton and Padma Gillen. These guys have given me some fun facts about them, which is very exciting. So Isla was once an extra in a Bollywood film, which I think is going to have I am expecting some dancing during this presentation. And Padma wanted me to mention that he has a book coming out later this year, which is being published by Gather Content, and it's called Content-Led Digital Transformation, which I think a lot of us will have some kind of stake in, so that's very exciting. And I would like to hand over to them to give their talk on user needs, content design and culture change.
Good morning. I'm Ayala Gordon. I'm Head of Digital from the University of Southampton.
I'm Padma Gillen. I've been helping Ayala with getting content design embedded in the University of Southampton.
Yeah, and today really we are going to talk to you about the digital transformation at the University of Southampton. We have a lot to tell, it's been a journey, so we are going to use lots of different techniques and some heroes and some evil characters and some goodies and baddies, and I apologize in advance if we're going really fast. We'll try and slow down where we can, but there is a lot to tell. So the focus of the story is really a quest rather than a person making that journey.
Thank you. Okay, so once upon a time, in a land far, far away, a land called a university. It's called a university because it's somewhere in between a universe and a city. So there's like loads of buildings, lots of campuses, loads of people, lots of levels of government and hierarchy. It's got its own language, which is a bit like Klingon. There's like HOFOs and FARs. I've been trying to learn it, but I can't quite get my head around it. Lots of power structures, loads of boards, and basically this place wants to stay as it is. But the time has come for change. Why has the time come? Well, the time has come because firstly, you've got kind of demographic changes, so there are less prospective students. Fees have gone up, so students are getting more discerning, and user experience is now a thing. And you're not only competing with other universities, you're also competing with Facebook, and user expectations have gone up. Now, none of that's particularly new. And a lot of people might say, well, so what? And a lot of people in the university did say, well, so what? Well, the thing is, yes, in some ways we've been here before, but in other ways there are some specific changes. The time has really come. So within the university, there's a new Vice-Chancellor, and the new Vice-Chancellor is eager for change. He gets that digital is going to be an important part of that. We've also done a content audit of the website, and we know that the website is growing by about 5,000 pages a year. There are well over 1,000 people with the right to publish on the website. GDPR's come in, CMA compliance has come in. There are hundreds of microsites, and that's growing all the time. So we know that something has got to change. Sooner or later, this whole thing is going to fall over. So a new dawn is rising. So that's the context within the university. Outside of the university, content design is now a thing. Gov.uk has happened. So for the first time, a kind of major public sector outfit has taken a user needs-based approach to meeting the needs of its users. So this user needs-based approach is basically articulated like this. I'm sure a lot of you are quite familiar with it now. So this is a user story. As a blah, I want to blah, so I can blah. So like as a prospective student, I want to decide whether this university is right for me, so I can choose whether I'm going to apply there. So users have a choice, and if we're not meeting their needs, they'll go to somebody who is meeting their needs. On the other hand, we've got what the university needs. And really, the university's goal, or one of its important goals, is to have a website that encourages more high-quality prospective students to choose to apply to the university. And that is traditionally what the focus has been. So rather than thinking about users, we've thought about what do we want out of it, and the publishing has been based on that motivation, which ends up, because you're not thinking about the needs of users, you end up with duplication of content. So that there are on one of the pages that we looked at, there are 11 different instances of that page on the website at the moment. So if people aren't thinking about what the needs of users are and how you meet those, then you're going to get the same kind of content duplicated numerous times, which is very confusing if you're a user. You're going to get gaps in content because there are some legitimate user needs that you're completely unaware of that aren't being met. You're going to get poor search engine optimization because if you're not thinking about the language that your users are using and their mental model for understanding this content, and you're thinking about your mental model as a subject matter expert who's been in academia for 20 years and is totally fluent in Klingon, and thinks like that, and understands the way that the university is structured and thinks like that, you're a million miles away from how the user experiences it and how the user thinks about it. So even if you've got all the information there, the user can't find it because they're not searching for the terms that you're writing in. And quite literally, you end up with 200,000 pages instead of 2,000. And as I said, on the University of Southampton's website, it's grown about 5,000 pages per year. In short, you end up with websites that are impossible to manage and expensive to maintain. And the expensive to maintain bit is quite often the lever that brings about change. In short, you end up with certainly the Southampton University website and quite possibly your website too. Fortunately, there are heroes in our midst. And actually, there is more than one hero. I think there might be some heroes in the room here. And as we know, heroes don't generally come from the upper echelons of the power structure. They're quite often farm boys in far-off distant planets, riding around on little space scooters, and they don't have any institutional power, but they know something needs to change. And maybe what we've got here is the beginnings of a secret Jedi Council. So the hero knows something is wrong, and they make a decision to change it with whatever weapons they've got. Unfortunately, we do have some weapons. For instance, we can highlight the reputational risk of the current website. So this is actually social media, a message that came through on social media from a current student who was wondering whether it was a scam site because it just didn't look right. We can highlight the costs of doing nothing. So we know, as I've said, the site is growing and growing. More and more web editors, changes outside of the organisation, changes in the law around GDPR and so on. Really, this is a problem waiting to become a big problem. We can also highlight that there's a lost opportunity in not doing it right. We know that the university website is the most important place prospective students find information when they're choosing whether to apply to a course or not. So if your website's rubbish, you're missing a huge opportunity. Another weapon we've got is that we can share the knowledge of what others are doing about it. So we come to a conference like this and we find out that actually in all these different universities there's all this amazing stuff going on. And we can say, look, I'm not a weirdo. Like, other people are thinking like this too, and just because you're not on board yet, it doesn't mean that I'm crazy, and we really should do something about it. And then, sort of tied into that, we can evangelise a vision for another way. I would argue that that should be about user needs. Okay.
Thank you. So, the reversal of fortune, and something does happen during this quest, and we get a green light for consultation. So I'll talk a little bit through what the quest looks like, what it was like from the University of Southampton's perspective, and what it actually entailed. So the first thing, every quest needs a wizard. So we hired Padma, and he helped us to navigate this uncertainty and shape the approach to the content-led transformation that we wanted to take. Obviously, Padma comes with really a lot of experience from gov.uk, used to be head of content at GDS, so he was really used to the complexity of public sector organizations.
Can I just say, don't go to the local barbers. Just ask them for a drink.
I was going to say that's before the barber appointment. And yeah, he had a lot of experience in migrating many websites, microsites into one single domain, meeting user needs. So we thought, yeah, let's see if there is some parallels with the university. And I can say that there are, but also there are some differences. So whatever Southampton is going to be doing is not going to be what gov.uk did. It will be very relevant to Southampton. So an embryonic concept is born, and it actually was born before I even joined the university, but I took it forward with my team. And when we got the green light for consultation, we really, OneWeb was born. And OneWeb is basically, was a way of addressing all our external web-facing content and how we're going to bring them all into one single domain. When I'm talking about the website is massive. It's a big web estate. So the first thing that Padma mentioned we did earlier was a content audit, and what we did with that was looking at all the different platforms, apps, everything that when you go to your device and you do a quick search and you hit return and it comes up with a search result page and you can access without any authentication, that means it's externally web-facing. So all of that was within scope. We looked at the sample pages of about 10,000 pages, 6 months worth of data, like I said, various platforms, lots of different weird and obscure things. And these were the 4 main lessons that sort of came out of this audit. Firstly, our governance model is not fit for purpose. And we need very clear roles and responsibilities to display the accuracy of information on the website. We really need a split of responsibility between fact checkers and between the people that are responsible for putting the user needs and all the UX side of things on the website. So web specialists and content specialists in the specific areas. Our content creation is not fit for purpose because there is no quality control built into any of our publishing workflows, and really my team is constantly put in a very difficult position where they have to negotiate with non-specialists and attempt to minimize the poor quality of content that is going on the website. No one has really overall responsibility for it, and there is no consistent approach to how content is published. Our publishing model is not fit for purpose because we have an army of CMS editors. So just on our corporate website, we have 1,000 plus web editors, all doing their own thing across the empire, publishing content, and the website is growing at a rate of 5,000 pages per year. And it is unmanageable. It's completely, unsustainable, and we are penalized by search engines because we have a fat website, and we can't control it anymore. And our domain model is not fit for purpose because we have hundreds and thousands of websites and microsites all knitted together in some sort of weird way with a sticky tape, all sort of holding on there. The information architecture doesn't really make sense, it's unreliable. We have multiple CMSs, we have legacy systems, so we have daisy chain redirects, so 5 different levels of redirects that basically give a big headache, not just for SEO and for the IT department, because it's a huge maintenance cost and overhead over technical teams and implications. So it results in a lot of broken journeys and really unintuitive experience for the user. This was just a quote that sort of came up just before I came to the conference, and it's actually from 2007 and still highly relevant in the sense that it's talking about how the corporate website is, doesn't really meet user needs. And in many, many ways, conversations, especially with prospective students, happen in all sorts of different ways. The website is a really important channel, but really they also listen to each other on social media. The conversation happens before that. So really, to make it relevant, and this is from 2007, it's still relevant, is we need to meet user needs in order to take it forward. So we know we have a bit of work to do after this audit, and it's time to roll up the sleeves. So consultation starts. And consultation, just like really quickly in numbers. So one really big communication plan that was scrutinized by lots of critical friends, including ones that knew nothing about the web and nothing about technology, to make sure it's in plain English and totally understood. Had 4 departmental debriefs, so we are part of a directorate and about 70 people plus, so everyone had to understand what it is about. It's a key strategic priority for the whole department. So when people are being asked in faculties questions, they can answer those, or elsewhere across the university. We also had 20 user needs workshops, which I'll talk a bit in a moment. I did them in 3 weeks over 5 campuses, back to back, non-stop, just get it done. And I think that was the first shock for people. It was like, whoa, it's happening. Over 200 colleagues have participated in those, and that was sort of a strong indication that we are serious about it. One of the key differences with the user needs workshops was not just to get stakeholders to understand what users are after and to put themselves in the shoes of the users. It was really, the key difference was to make it really obvious that this is about, first of all, about the process, then about the information, and then it is about the system. really, it is, if we do it in that order, it will be a lot easier in the long run, and we're not just going to come back to the same problems time and time again. You place technology at the end point of our discussion, and this is really was the key thing, is really to help to stop like coming up with a solution, first of all, to every problem, because actually the real key issue is about our culture and about how we do things, and that needs to change first before we do anything. There is no point getting the shiniest, latest toy and bolt it on a legacy system, because it's like putting solar panels over a Lego house. It's going to fall apart eventually. Someone will argue that probably not, but yeah, that was basically the idea. So that was what we did, and sometimes it really felt like this, you know. It was difficult conversations, difficult meetings, you had people that didn't want to know you, that didn't want to be engaged, that already been there before, that you know, thought I'm too late, you know, that should have happened 3 years ago, and there were some really positive meetings out of it as well. So it is about, you know, I was relatively new to the higher education, and I put my foot in it not once, not twice, not 3 times, and it was all around sort of semantics and how people perceive what you're saying. So Alison had a really important lesson right at the first talk in day 1, which was about really try to figure out what your stakeholders are after, and she was right. Did millions and millions of presentations and meetings, pre-meetings, after meeting, during workshops, you know, it was just quite unbelievable, and it sometimes felt like this. So, you know, it felt a bit like the Congress sweep, going around, meeting with lots of people. I became a coffee drinker during those consultation periods, and really it was about trying to figure out what motivates those stakeholders. Those top people, you know, might have completely different agendas. It might be about efficiency, it might be about something totally different, but, you know, it was definitely House of Cards meeting Games of Thrones in some places. So it was all about building awareness, and never doubt what commitment can do, because just standing out there and talking and not going to anywhere and waiting to be taken down is not going to get you anywhere. So it is about really start gaining ground, talking to people, making the changes that will see you pass through the battle, and really, if you want your virus to take hold, you need to have it infiltrated and multiplied a few times. So it is about growing a movement, and I'm only going to, I'll see if I can play that, and probably some of you have seen this. See if I've got the, I'm not going to play it with audience, but it's basically about the single crazy person that is doing whatever wants to be doing.
It's not showing.
Oh, is it not? Oh, technical problems. Sorry. It did work when we rehearsed. I'm going to move on. I'll show it you later. It's basically the single crazy guy in the festival having his dance. You'll have the links for it in the presentation later. And basically, the more crazy it looks, the more people joining in, and it's a one big fun party. So how did we gain ground? Yes, a lot of you mentioned you've been doing blogs, so did we. We started a team blog documenting our progress. Really, especially when we're experimenting, we've been doing week notes. It is about, again, those advocacy. We gained very quick number of sort of subscribers that constantly wanted to know what's going on. And you know when you're successful, when people actually stopping you in the cafes in the university and say, oh, by the way, what's happening with OneWeb? And oh, I've read your blog, and I have to say, I really like the way you communicated it to people. And I thought, yeah, okay, you know, it's happening. And every university likes a good paper, and University of Southampton is no exception. So I had to write many, many papers, strong papers, long papers, short papers, powerful papers, many papers. And I have to say that, that is a really difficult thing, because you very quickly come to realize that you have the old world that you're trying to move away from, you have the new world that you are keen and eager to jump right into, and actually you have two parallel universes happening, coincide side by side, and you really can't just leave the old world behind. So it does mean you have extra amount of work, double the amount of work, whilst this is all happening. And then, like with every good story, it gets complicated. So, how many of you had restructure for the past couple of years or going through it right now? Yeah, so we. So, restructure happens. Pension crisis happens, all over the country, not just at Southampton. Lots of different things that divert the attention of top leadership from the real, my mission, our mission, whatever we really wanted to happen. So our leadership get distracted, and all best plans have to adapt to changing circumstances. And it's about the ingenuity of it. So the goal doesn't change, but how you get the change. And I'll let Padma just talk you through what happens next.
Thank you. Yeah, we've put in a hell of a lot of work, and we've kind of built this momentum. Then conditions change, and it looks like, as with many projects in large organisations, it could just be shelved for 6 months, a year, forever. So what do we do? And as far as sort of several people in sort of senior positions in the university are concerned, there's no Black Riders coming, there's no armies amassing in Mordor. There was a website, there's still a website, there's going to be a website tomorrow, what's the problem? So they're quite happily waiting for their second breakfast. And we're trying to kind of maintain this sense of urgency, and actually something radical does need to happen. There's this like large organisations in sort of higher education sector, in government sector, in the private sector. When they get beyond a certain size, they've all got the same sort of way of operating, and it's this kind of inertia that feels really safe, but when conditions change significantly, like they are now, actually that's a massive risk. So it's about saying, look. Like in government in 2010, Martha Lane Fox said, we need revolution, not evolution. And that's how GDS started, and that's how Gov.uk started. It's like we need to do things significantly differently. So what we're trying to do is build that sense of urgency at Southampton. And Ayala talked about having to work in two parallel universes, so we're conceiving of it as an agile project, but as far as the university is concerned, we didn't do a discovery, we did a consultation, and now we did a course pilot, we didn't do an alpha, but in terms of the way that we ran it, we ran an alpha. So it was a 10-week thing. We tested 3 different prototype approaches to course pages with users. We did the as-is, so that's what's on the website at the moment. We did a Hefky version, which is like Hefky best practice version of the content, and then we did a like full-on content design approach, which we called the RAD design. And we tested all 3 of them. In short, Hefky did okay. The RAD version did pretty well. What's coming on the website didn't do so well. And what we're learning from that is actually we can't do a full-on total strip-back content design thing. In order to meet the user need, actually we do need a level of detail, and it's just kind of now we're looking at working out how we structure that so it's easy to get through. This was the user need we were trying to meet. As a young person in the UK with predicted good A-level grades, I want to see what the University of Southampton has to offer so I can decide if I want to apply there. Now, in order to be able to make this happen, it's all very well kind of like changing the content, but if you don't have the governance model to sustain that, then this is going to fall over. So, as Ayala said, it's also about the processes. And so we also, as part of the Alpha, experimented with a new governance model. And we used gathered content to police that in a way. We designed the workflow within gathered content. We had all different levels of permission within gathered content. So we split the UX, ownership of the UX from ownership of the factual accuracy, which is the same way we approached it in government. And they work together. So content ownership is a joint thing. So we had a fact check section in the workflow, and we had the fact checkers had the ability to comment, but they couldn't rewrite content, and they couldn't publish.
Back to me. And in the meantime, when all of this is happening and we're writing about it and we're experimenting, our business case is finally getting the right traction and the right support. And we start going through all the various boards. The University of Southampton is a pretty big university. It has lots of complex boards and governance, and we're starting to be heard, which is really great. But you need to stand out amongst all the other competing projects, and this is the tricky thing, is when you have a really big organization and you have lots of different priorities and you have one pot of money, you know, how do you make your project stand out more than others? And sometimes it's really beyond your, you know, what you can actually do and influence, but it's really important to remember that. Because everybody loves a good comeback, and we really want to be able to take it forward. So we are waiting to hear what's next, and we want to do a beta for the alpha that we just carried out. We want to transform the site completely. We want to build a sustainable governance and content model. We want a full content design team and UX team working in an agile way centrally. And we want to develop an information architecture that is completely based on user needs. And we want our content to be accessible all over the world, so people can find us really easily. So if you want to know what is happening next, you will have to wait and see. But we are ready, and we would love to come back here next year if you want to see what the sequel looks like. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys. Awesome presentation and awesome slides, I think I can say. Does anyone have any questions?
Quite bunched.
It's say Friday morning.
Yeah.
One down here and then one at the back.
Hi, Alex, University of Bristol. I was just wondering, who's your most senior champion for the change? Who have you got to support you?
Sure. So I've got my director, who is Director of Comms and Marketing, but I also have our Executive Director, so is for Comms and Marketing and also other departments. And in addition to that, there are some deans that are championing this, so this is really good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Bradley, Equify. Question, do you have to bring an external change agent in to make this happen? Is that how you get the attention of people at the top of the organization?
You don't have to bring a change agent, but it was extremely useful because you then not the only crazy lunatic that is saying this needs to happen. So you know, I mean, I came from an external place anyway, so it was a little bit, I wouldn't say easy, because it wasn't easy at all, but I know that my predecessor was saying exactly the same thing and did an amazing job, but I think it was me being new saying exactly the same, you know, that helped, and then bringing Padma on board a bit later was again really useful because he brought the complexities that he understood from government. And a lot of people at the university and outside the university have complete appreciation how brilliant gov.uk is, and you know, everyone applied for MOT and so on. So, you know, people understood what I was trying to do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Another one down here.
Chris Scott from Headscape.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. Thanks for a great talk. I just had some questions around scope, really, and the huge discovery phase you've been through, and whether you set boundaries to that. So, for example, Southampton, Russell Group, research-led, so I imagine there's a lot of pressure from stakeholders to promote research and business services, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
Was that within scope, or did you decide that to leave
It is
that
in
for
scope,
later phase?
yeah. But we do acknowledge that we will need to have probably different models of governance so it depends really what falls centrally and what's not. The most important thing is that we portray our brand in the best way possible out there. What's in scope is everything that sits on the southampton.ac.uk and soton.ac.uk domains, so that including the research and enterprise side of the university as well.
So when you went from discovery to deciding what the focus for your alpha should be, for example, what was the process there in terms of objective setting, and which of the stakeholders did you use?
Yeah, so the discovery itself included the audit itself, so looked at the various sites. It also included the stakeholder consultation when we got the green light to go ahead with the concept. And the user needs workshops included variety of stakeholders from all over the university. We try to keep them relatively small, because if you have too many people in the room,
sure,
you're not going to make any progress. But it was all about also the communication of it. I mean, I can't tell you there is never enough. You can carry on and doing more and more and more work. So I know that part of our big way forward will be to continue with engagement, communication, the financing of it, all of that never ends. That will carry on.
Just to say, for the alpha, we kind of consciously reduced that massively to undergraduates only, domestic students, prospective students only, and we used course pages because they're quite high profile. People care about them. They're quite complex in terms of who owns the content. There's multiple people need to be involved. There are quite a lot of differences in the. Some of them involve working for part of the course. Some of them involve multiple campuses and different parts of the university and so on. So it was an interesting experiment, but we narrowed that right down for the alpha.
Because the treatment for PG courses, for example, or research PGR will be completely different.
Yeah.
And we started big, went small. Yeah.
I think that's probably all we've got time for now. So if we could just give a big thank you to these two.
Thank you.
Hello.
I've got your phone.
Where's it clicking? Oh, where's it gone? Have you guys got the clicker?
What's that?
The clicker?
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, it's your, oh no.
Yeah, actually.
Oh, I don't know if it's connected, if it's not.
It just needs to go into somewhere.
I think
that was.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
What is it? Our second talk this morning is from the University of Aberdeen, and here we have Megan, and I have many fun facts about Megan. One of which is that Megan's first real job, as opposed to fake job, was as a parliamentary assistant to Alex Salmond, which went really well, as on her first day she had to caddy for him during a charity golf tournament, and he handed her 5 phones to manage, and she went home and cried. So it's gone uphill from there.
And I was 17 at the time, so...
So I'm going to hand over to Megan and maybe at some point to Mike, who I also have a fun fact about. Mike once touched Iggy Pop's foot. To talk about student recruitment and CRM.
Great, yeah, so I'm Megan McFarlane. I'm the Inquiry and Conversion Manager at the University of Aberdeen, so I sit within student recruitment. I'm here with my colleague Mike, who after a couple of days at this conference, it's pretty clear that everybody knows. It feels like I've been walking around with a celebrity for the last few days. And I'm also, unfortunately my colleague Fraser Smith couldn't be here, but he's our SharePoint and CRM manager, and I've been working really, really closely with him over the last year. So I'm here to talk about student recruitment inquiries in CRM. So before we get into it, we thought we would do a bit of know your acronyms, because at all universities we all talk in our own language, so please just stop me if I say something that makes no sense. But when you tweet about our session, feel free to use the OMG. Oh my God, your presentation is really, really great. We'll certainly do our best. So before we can talk about what we're doing now and where we're going in the future, we have to go and look at the olden days. So all the way back 3 whole years ago, when it came to our inquiry management, we didn't really have any inquiry management at all. We had one email address called stras@abdn.ac.uk. Hands up, who remembers what STRAS stands for from the acronyms? Okay, nobody? So that kind of shows the problem there. So it stands for Student Recruitment and Admissions Service, and we were expecting our prospective students to actually make sense of that. We had one person who was checking this account. Messages were just being forwarded to recruitment staff. There was absolutely no follow-up. It was really, really limited. We had no communications plan. We had no integration with our CRM system. And we had a really, really limited service. So basically we were spending hundreds of thousands of pounds trying to recruit students and get them to engage with us, and then we did absolutely nothing with them. So this is what it looked like. An inquiry would come into the university and it would just be flung everywhere. I have absolutely no doubt that inquiries were being sent to multiple people at the same time. They would have had a different level of service from each team. I'm pretty sure that some people would have got answers from 2 sets of teams in the university with conflicting information. So it really, really just wasn't good enough. And then it brings us to the present, and the present's great, it's the best. There's no major problems going on right now. So we decided to make the University of Aberdeen great again. And how were we going to do that? We were going to recruit 500 students. We had 6 months to not only meet our international PGT target, but to add 500 students on top of that. So how on earth were we going to do this? So yeah, so basically that's kind of the journey of our prospective student. How are we going to get them to find out about the university, maybe submit an inquiry, turn that inquiry into an application, get that application into an offer, get that person to accept their offer, get them cleared for admission. That means they've met their conditions, they've got money in their bank account, they're going to get a visa, and then actually get them to register as a student. But how could we do that when we just had this one email inbox and the inquiries being flung all over the institution? So the inquiry room was born. Now, if I've learned anything from this whole project, was that if you have a physical space, you're taken more seriously in the university, and if you're bold enough to paint a wall blue, then you will have every senior manager come and see the new space. So if you take anything, go back to your university, get a room, paint a wall, and you'll probably get a promotion. Or not. So these sort of yellow desks, they were for our call campaign. So we have international students sitting there and make outbound telephone calls to our prospective students. We've done about 5,000 this year already. The concept of that desk was that the fabric would muffle out the sound of the call. And I sit in there and I can tell you that it doesn't work. I've listened to 5,000 of them now. But we have a plan in place and we actually have staffed the room properly. So where do our inquiries come from now? It doesn't matter where they come from and what method the inquirer wants to use, they all come into the inquiry room. And that's had some really, really immediate benefits for us. So we finally have a turnaround target. We answer all of our inquiries within 1 working day by email. We have a live chat service on the website. Live chats are answered instantly. 10 seconds is a pretty generous target. We have a targeted communications plan. We finally have a consistent brand. So gone are the days of messages going to students in different branding, different tone, different style, going on the same day with conflicting information. And we can finally report on our inquiries. So I can tell our senior managers where inquiries are coming from and what they're about. But to do that, we really needed some systems. So Happy Fox is our inquiry ticketing system. Keeping with the animal theme, Gecko is our offline data capture system and is the basis of many of our web forms. Hobson's is our CRM system, and it holds all of our inquirer data, and it's the system we use to push out communications. And Campaign Monitor is our email design system. So this is Happy Fox. So one of the major benefits of having our emails come into a system like this was that no longer did they have to leave the system to be answered. So they could be reassigned inside it, and that means I could check if things were being answered correctly and on time. So student ambassadors could reassign things to different people in the team, and then I could sort of check up if it was being answered. So I've been really, really popular since this whole project's come in, because I can check up on people every day. And I can create dashboards and create reports on how many inquiries we're receiving and what they're about. And that can really inform our activity in country as well. So we have a live chat service on the website. So this is the back end of that. You can see the history of the chat with that person. You can see what page they're sitting on the website and where they are in the world when they're talking to you. One of the most interesting things is when someone's sitting on a web page and is asking a question and the answer is on that page. So not only is that pretty heartbreaking, but it's a good thing to feed back to marketing in terms of the content, the web team in terms of the structure, and it does help us improve our web pages. And that's what it looks like for the prospective student. So we tend to keep the chats pretty informal, smiley faces, sort of creating a different sort of tone on live chat. And Gecko, I promise I don't work for them. I know I've done a master class with them yesterday, but I am a fan. Gecko is how we use our, we do offline data capture in country, and then it syncs with our CRM system. We have a lot of forms, we have a lot of users, so probably the next stage for us is to try and put a bit of governance into how we use Gecko. And here's just a few examples of how we use it. So it's the basis of our sort of main inquiry form on the website. It's also how we get people to sign up for certain projects, and that one on the right there is how we use it offline in country. But it's really easy to set up. We don't need IT to come in and do things for us there. We can do it ourselves. So Campaign Monitor, that's how we design our outgoing communications. We actually don't pay for Campaign Monitor. We use a free version. We create messages, and then we take the HTML and put it into Hobson's to send out. And this is Hobson's. That's where all of our 100,000 inquirers sit there, and we also use it to send out all the communications that we have created in Campaign Monitor. So as you can see, we've got a lot of systems, and there's just no integration between them, which is a real problem because we've got siloed data on our prospective students sitting in these 4 different systems, and that means I can't create a clear picture of how somebody has got here. So from that point of inquiry to registration, I don't know what's worked, and that means that I can't actually stop any of my projects because we're too scared in case that's the thing that is working. And when someone has an idea, we kind of have to do it because we don't know, we have no data to say if it may or may not work. So all that's happened is our workload has gone through the roof, but we actually might be diluting our service. So we've given students so many ways to engage with us with no real clue if it's working or not. So now I'm going to pass over to Mike to talk about our bright future.
Good morning, folks. I'm Mike, and I'm the systems manny for Aberdeen, or for the Scottish, non-Scottish folk here, I'm the systems man from Aberdeen. So I'm here to talk about systems and take credit for my colleague Fraser Smith's work. So, more systems. The systems Megan described at Support Inquiry Management are not the only CRM story at the institution. We have multiple CRMs across the institution. Last time I counted, I think we had about 11 genuine CRM systems. And we've also got lots of other systems, some of which, but not all, are represented in this slide that provide CRM-type capabilities. And I'd imagine this kind of crowded information architecture is not atypical for a higher education institution, because over time, point-based solutions are implemented to help with specific processes. But while such solutions can provide a degree of niche functionality that's really good, it makes it very difficult to report across them, as Megan was saying, and it makes it very difficult to do things like comply with GDPR. And of course, applicants, students, and alumni have to interact with different systems. So I've got a few wee screenshots of things applicants have to interact with. So here's our applicant. He's just getting a bit of stubble on his face. He's just left school. And he's going to enter into, or be entered into, potentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 systems. So of course, some are on-site and some are off-site. So GDPR compliance, of course, is an issue for each one of these systems. And of course, it's a bit of a confusing picture for him. Now, here he is as a fully bearded hipster student. He's a bit cool now. And again, some of these systems can be on-site or off-site. And in this example, we have 2 pure CRM systems, Target Connect, which we use for careers, and Dynamics on-site, which we use for student support queries. But we also have a number of other systems that hold customer-facing information. And in many cases, we ask the student to re-identify themselves every time they come to one of these systems. And even post-study, our fully bearded graduand or alumnus has to potentially deal with 3 different pure CRM systems despite having left the institution. And no wonder his hair is beginning to recede as well. And poor old Megan, she has to get information from all of these systems. How will she ever hope to provide a consistent student experience? No wonder her roots are starting to show. So to the future, what would better look like? Well, we want to provide a much simplified interaction. Simplified interaction for the stubbly applicant, the hipster student, and the fully bearded alumnus. And we want them to minimize the number of systems they're exposed to, and instead allow them to interact with systems they're comfortable with, such as social, chat, web forms, or email. Has everyone finished taking a picture of Brian? To the next slide. And then the CRM will be hidden at the back end. And here's Megan. This slide we designed for senior management. Can you tell why? This is the simplified picture. So Megan wants one gigantic CRM that she can easily report on and doesn't have all that labor of moving information in between systems. So that's our strategy, and that concludes the presentation. No, I'm just kidding. We have actually decided upon a big master CRM system, so are you ready? That drumming should have been a lot louder. So we've decided on Microsoft Dynamics 365. We're very attracted to 365 because we have staff and student email in the cloud already. We have email for life for some alumni in the cloud. We use SharePoint 365 in the cloud. We use Microsoft Office in the cloud, and we even, God help us, use Microsoft Teams. I know, Slack's much cooler. So we've got all those integration pieces already there, so Dynamics is quite attractive to us. And also, of course, with calendaring, there's an automatic integration there for Dynamics, so it's very attractive. So our strategy is to move everything into Dynamics in the longer term as much as possible, whilst recognizing that for individual processes, for example, it's unlikely we would move alumni away from Razor's Edge, at least in the short to medium term. But moving everything else we can. And the first step in that journey is Megan's recruitment and inquiries process. So, for recruitment inquiries, we'll be using the core Dynamics system, but also integrating additional services to provide us with the full functionality we require. Now, I know we've just been saying in Megan's slides that we wanted to minimize the amount of systems, and you'll see on this slide that we've got quite a few systems we're integrating. But I think the difference here is that these are true integrations. They do actually purely and naturally integrate with Dynamics at the back end. So I'll be going through each of these in detail, but in short, we have Gecko Labs. As Megan was saying, we're not in the employ or pay of Gecko Labs, but it is a very flexible tool. We'll be using that for web forms, for SMS. We're using .mailer also for SMS. We haven't decided on a VoIP. Does everyone remember what VoIP means? Hands up if you know what VoIP means. Voice over IP, yes, well done everyone. And marketing automation from .mailer. And last but not least, we're working with a company called Crimson Consultants. Now, Crimson do pure Dynamics development, but they look at HE particularly as a market, and they've looked at lots of processes in HE, and they've built what they call accelerators around those processes. So, for example, one might be open days and events management, and they have an accelerator for that. And happily, they have one for recruitment and inquiries. So we're going to be implementing the Crimson Consultants accelerator for recruitment and inquiries. So I'm going to talk you through some of the features of our minimal viable product for recruitment and inquiries. So first of all, forms. It's Gecko again. Yeah, I love Gecko. So it's a very flexible tool. We're sticking with it, and as Megan says, it's really good because it does offline capture. So if you have folk over at conferences overseas where there might not be network connectivity, they can capture information from forms at fairs. When they get back to the hotel, they get a network connection. Gecko will sync with the master dynamics system, and all that stuff is automatically integrated. Despite using Gecko for most forms, we have done some forms ourselves. So the example you see on screen is actually our new inquiry form, which we did write ourselves in-house because we wanted a highly branded version of that. And I know that in future developments of Gecko, looking at the Gecko chaps up there, we're going to be able to do much more with skinning it to look a bit more like our own systems. And the business logic behind this is reasonably complex, so it adopts a progressive disclosure model. Each ensuing field is populated or revealed based on the previous field selection. So this ensures a simplified user experience and more accurate data capture. Chat. So for chat, as I say, we used the Cafe X product, which again integrates directly with Dynamics, a huge improvement on the chat thing Megan was showing you before. It provides canned responses so people can answer things quickly. It integrates with the Dynamics knowledge base, and it has that co-browse capability Megan was mentioning. So if someone's stuck on a web page or a page in an application, they can automatically fire up a chat window and share that screen with someone from Megan's inquiry team. So here's an example of a customer view of the chat tool. The customer, who's coincidentally called Megan, is entering her name on the left-hand screen, and once she's done that, she gets access to the live inquiry team to ask her questions. Oops. And at the back end, this is the view that Megan's team have. So you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's the chat window natively within Dynamics, but perhaps more interestingly, or perhaps more sinisterly, the information has been captured already that Megan's entered as a record. So she's already a record on the Dynamics system. This is the first time she's asked us anything, and it's captured the information that she's volunteered, but also perhaps more sinisterly, it's captured a whole bunch of other information about her, like where she's coming from, what her browser is, what device she's on. So we're already building up a very focused picture of who Megan is, even though this is the first time she's contacted us about anything, and that's already natively in Dynamics. For SMS, as I say, we're using .mailer. So what's happening here is a generic message is being created in the left-hand screen in the bottom lower red box, and in the top red box it's being merged with the applicant record from Dynamics. It's then sending a personalized message to John's phone on the right-hand side of the screen. All well and good, we've all seen this kind of thing before. But what happens when John reacts to that or opens it, we get a record back written to Dynamics. We're building up more intelligence on poor old John as we go. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this sort of lead generation, marketing automation, and .mailer again. I'm going to give you a quick example of email automation. So, like many email packages, .mailer offers a WYSIWYG editor. There it is on the left. But it also draws upon what are called dynamic content blocks, and that's what you see on the screen on the right. And these dynamic content blocks can be tracked on an individual basis, so it gives us a very good granular idea of what elements of an email people are reacting to or reacting with, if any at all. And when we have this level of granular control, we can see in a very detailed way what people are responding to. So this is a screenshot of how people are reacting to an element within an email and sharing it in social channels. So you'll see that we're seeing who shared what links or emails and how they shared them, and who shared them as well at the very bottom of the screen. So all that information is again going back into Dynamics, so even though the applicant or prospect might not think that they're doing much by opening an email, we actually are gaining competitive intelligence on them all the time. And when we have this degree of granular control, we can automate email campaigns. So this is an if this, then that model, where we're saying what happens if someone opens the email, what are we going to do? What happens if they don't open the email? What happens if they open the email and click on a link? Are we going to then drip feed them some further information? And we can set up a workflow based around all the intelligence we're building on them. So all this work that Megan is doing very, very manually at the minute, extracting this information from Campaign Monitor and then putting it into Hobson's, and then all this can be automated using .mailer, and again captured in Dynamics. So I'm going to give some examples of the Dynamics dashboard. Crimson Consultants have now delivered us tailored dashboards based on our requirements. This is a screenshot of Megan's colleague Fiona and her dashboard, and you'll see that it's got a highly visual view of all the inquiries that are coming in, those that have been closed, those that need to be actioned, those that have been passed somewhere else, and so on. I'd like some water. And this is a role-based approach, so if I go on to the next screen, you'll see that there's a breakdown of who's working on what inquiries and where they're sitting at the minute, what various teams are doing. So it's really quite a sophisticated system. And here is a shot of an applicant. As you'll see at the top left, his name is David Stoll, and we've captured every single interaction we've had with David, whether by email, phone, chat, text already. So we're building up a very detailed picture of David and what he's doing. And actually, David's inquiries are all just to do with tests, so I wouldn't try and read them in too much detail. But if you notice at the top right-hand side of the screen, there's a thing called engagement score. And this is a score that goes up and up and up and up the more engaged David becomes with us and the more things he does with us. And I'll show you on the next screen the kind of things we use to measure that. So actually, David's not very engaged. He's only got a score of 20, and all he's done is made an inquiry, middle top box. But you can see also that if he were to attend an open day or an offer holder day, or look at us in social, or open an email, or phone us up, all this adds to his engagement score. And over time, the system builds up intelligence on the propensity of an applicant to apply, and it can match this to other applicants and get the type of applicants we'll be most able to attract, and they're therefore the ones upon whom Megan should spend the most time, because they're the most likely to convert. So we can build up a lot of competitive information on these. Now, if David just does a lot of stuff early on, and then he doesn't do anything for 3 months, his score drops again, doesn't it? 10%? 10%. So the system it doesn't just sit with that score forever, it does understand time as well. The dashboards and Dynamics itself also works offline a bit like Gecko, so if Megan was away at a fair or something, she could be working in her hotel room without network connectivity, and it works on mobile devices, so it's all very on the hoof if you want it to be, and Megan's someone who works 24/7, 7 days a week and 365 days a year, so that's very suitable for her. So that's really our minimum viable product, and we're going to deliver it in summer 2018. But wait a minute, Megan, isn't it summer 2018 already? When can we expect this? 3 weeks. Right, what are you doing here? You should be back at the ranch. But that's not all. We're going to bring in future enhancements for not just recruitment inquiries. We're going to put other things into the system as well. And I'm going to show you quickly some of those. So Dynamics supports self-service. In this example, a student is booking an appointment with a personal tutor. And the attractive thing here is, because we have student email in the cloud and staff email in the cloud, that can automatically add things to their calendars so they know when the appointment is. But I mean, although that's an example of a student, we could also use this for an applicant booking an appointment with Megan's team for information. It also supports case management. The student can come along and raise a case. Maybe the sink's broken in their room in their halls, or maybe again it's an applicant wanting to raise a case with Megan. And you'll see below that there's suggested topics, so there's a knowledge base, which again grows more intelligent over time. Students can answer their own questions. We've also been tinkering with Power BI as it integrates seamlessly with Dynamics. We're going to be using that to report on the success or otherwise of Megan's team. I'm sure it's very successful. We don't quite know yet, do we? It's very visual, and of course management are especially interested in recruitment and inquiries, so it's going to be very helpful. And Power BI supports natural language queries, so even lay people can use it very easily. They don't need to know, for example, PL SQL like you would if you're using Oracle Business Reports. On the next slide, I have a video of Power BI that I've nicked from Crimson Consultants, and it is actually recruitment data that's been shown, and I'll give you a very quick overview of how visual the tool can be for the kinds of stuff that Megan does. I think it plays automatically. Yes, there we go. So this is recruitment data, and it's from another institution, and it's showing where inquiries are coming from over the world, and then the individual is drilling down on those to see lots of detailed information. To be honest, I don't actually know what's going on, but it looks really cool. So that's Power BI. Something we are already using at the university, although not with Megan's team currently, is social engagement. So Microsoft's social engagement tool is actually native dynamics, but they kind of market it as though it's a separate product, but it's not. And our social media officer uses this already. So what you can do with social engagement is plug in the various mainstream social channels, Facebook, Twitter, Blogger, things like that, and listen to what people are saying about the institution or anything else you wish to track. So in this example, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen that there's a sentiment analysis. That's a little smiley face, and you'll see that most of the sentiment is green, which is good because it's positive sentiment. The middle bit is neutral. We don't know quite what's going on there, or it could be just people are being a bit meh about the university. And then there's the red bit, which is the bit you should be worried about. It's negative sentiment. So you'll want to know about what that negative sentiment is and work at it. And you'll see as we move rightwards across the screen, the volume of things that are being said about the institution, phrases that are being used, and then who's saying them. So although this is really useful for social and our social policy and strategy, it's also good for dynamics and inquiry management, because we can create from questions that are being asked in social, we can automatically create inquiries within dynamics. The system can do that even automatically, and we can set up rules for that as well. And for comments, we can set up issues in Dynamics automatically too. And if there is negative sentiment, and I'm not going to drill down in the negative sentiment because it was quite negative, I've drilled down on some of the positives. This is from a freshers dashboard we had last year, and some nice comments that were being made from freshers. So you can see that we can see not just who said it on what platform, but in some cases we can actually see where it has been said. So if someone has their location information on their phone, you can tell where something has been said. And the first time we got our hands on social engagement tool, I was looking at it in my boss's office, and we found a very negative comment about the institution, and we drilled down on it, and we found it was someone in the office directly above the boss's office. In the business school, it actually had that level of detail on it, so we could go up and kick the door in. Hey, what are you doing? And you can go right down there and reply natively on the platform that the person is speaking about you on. That's a very badly structured, ungrammatic sentence, Mike. You can reply natively from within the social engagement to the person on the platform. So if you wanted to tweet back to Vimal there at the top, you could do so from in there. And all that integrates with Dynamics. And you could see, although we're not using it for recruitment inquiries at the minute, Megan's team do have access to it, and we may be doing something around clearing. Last year, I was very new to social engagement, and I set up a dashboard on the keyword clearing, and I blew all of our credits in about 24 hours because the word clearing was used so much. But you do need to be very careful about what you do. So, here's Megan's team in their honeycombed busy bee hives. What day was this? What were they doing? What day was this? What's the event here? Virtual Open Day. So here they're all slaving in a virtual open day, and they're saying to us, hurry up and give us all this cool stuff. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you both for that very exciting presentation. Has anyone got any questions?
Do you want to get your one now, Carly?
David Aldred from Nottingham. Mike, That was Mike and Megan. Sorry, that was great. Can I ask how much of what you were showing, Mike, is stuff that is built into Dynamics and the associated products, and how much has taken hours and hours and hours of pain and sweat to set up and configure and put together and code around?
You start.
Yeah, so the core products there, and Crimson Consultants, as Mike mentioned, have built an accelerator, but we've had to spend the last 6 months personalising that accelerator for us. So we've had to set up inquiry types, inquiry classifications, teams, queues, routing, everything. So they did have an out-the-box solution, but you have to spend a lot of time making it work for you.
Hi, I'm James from St Mary's University. That all sounded very similar to us, because we're also going to Dynamics 365, looking to integrate Gecko and .mailer. It's all sounding very, very similar. I was just wondering, how much sort of autonomy did you have with decisions about what systems you were going to use? Or were you very much being told, you're going to have to use this or use that?
So people tend not to tell me what to do.
Actually very true.
That is quite true. We did have a tender process, so I was told we were using Dynamics, but then every system that we've plugged in, I was sort of leading the tender process for that and made the decision. So we did get an awful lot of autonomy there.
From my point of view, we had a sort of natural lean towards Dynamics because, as I say, we're such a 365 institution, and we'd been sort of tinkering with it before, so I think we were sort of biased towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Hiya. I'm just wondering, is it quite expensive? Because it looks quite expensive.
Yes, it is. Dynamics licensing can be quite expensive. Microsoft, I feel, we're dealing with a Microsoft seller to get all that, and Microsoft need to sort their higher education game out because the licensing model is not good for higher education for Dynamics yet, but I think they will. It's just a case of hanging in there. And then for all the peripheral products, yes, they have a cost. The Crimson product is expensive too. Can't give you figures, but it's a big investment. But if the Project 500, which is the thing we call the Recruiting 500 students, that was a very expensive project as well. And although it delivered the inquiry room, it didn't have perhaps the result we wanted. So I think this is money better spent than that, but we couldn't have done this without having done that as a learning process first.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Kevin Mears, University of South Wales. How's the progress on turning off the old ones that you're not using anymore?
So we go live in 3 weeks, so we've not turned anything off. But there'll be a data migration happening in a few weeks from Hobson's. And that's really because we put everything into Hobson's manually at the moment. That's where all the inquiry data is sitting, so we only have to do one extraction and then put it in. So we'll see how that goes in a few weeks.
I just love adding to our applications environment. Megan adds applications that I don't know about, like Gecko.
Yeah.
I have to pick them up. No, yeah, we will get there, but not there yet.
I think that's probably all that we've got time for now, but if anyone has any questions, I'm sure Mike and Megan would be happy to answer them after this. The final presentation in this session is from Keith MacDonald. So I also have a fun fact from Keith, which has been wonderful. So Keith has actually been the editor of Nightmare.com since 2010. Now, I didn't know what Nightmare.com was, but apparently it's an 80s Dungeons and Dragons style game show. And Keith has also did the PR for a Nightmare convention in 2014, which helped to crowdfund £12,000 in 3 weeks. It's very impressive. So I'm going to hand over now to Keith to talk about taking back the reins.
Thank you. Good morning, all. I'm sorry, not sorry for my idiosyncratic dress sense. I think the idea behind this was that if my talk was to bomb, at least my shirt would have some chance of trending. So in addition to what Carly said, I'm a former academic of sorts in English Lit. I've taught undergraduates at the University of Geneva and the University of Leicester. I used to attend a lot of academic conferences, so this has been my first since a career change to professional services in 2013. I think the quality has been phenomenal, and I do hope that the academics at your institutions recognise the work that you do to take their ideas and present them really well. Start with a couple of confessions. So, one of them not being my obsession with particular Disney movies. So since submitting the abstract, I've since moved to the University of Greenwich, and heaven help us if I now get to say what I want to say rather than what I'm allowed to say. I think the title may have been a tad optimistic. I think it's easy to get quite carried away. I think a lot of what I'll be touching upon has been raised already across different talks, notably the Southampton one earlier this morning. And I think what I hope to add to that is a bit about the approach to the battles that you face, what you can win and maybe what you can't. But overall, I'll be speaking about issues of content governance. It begins, as most issues of governance do, with the bigger picture. You need to know what your content is and have a sense of what your strategy is before you can attempt to govern content or understand how to govern it best. The project I'll be discussing is the new University of London website, london.ac.uk, which launched last year. I have a very short intro video which accompanied the launch.
How should I study? Where should I study? Looking for answers? You can study for a University of London degree anywhere in the world. Through supported teaching in your country, remotely via distance learning, on campus in London, postgraduate study and research in the humanities at the School of Advanced Study, or at University of London Institute in Paris. We offer courses that are studied anywhere and valued everywhere. University of London. Find out more at london.ac.uk.
Yeah, bring on the Oscars. So, for those who weren't here or haven't seen Melanie Reid's talk last year, a quick recap. What was this new website intended to do? The answer combined two former websites, the old london.ac.uk on the right-hand side and londoninternational.ac.uk on the left. So the London site was effectively a signposting directory and a governance board. The London International site was exclusively for the university's distance learning operation. We wanted to improve UX and SEO principles and create a fit-for-purpose, mobile-first website focused upon prospective students. Goals included improving user journeys, reducing minor inquiries, increasing conversions and application numbers. And this is the result. I have to admit, at first I didn't really like the idea. Why? Because London International, the distance learning operation, had a rare luxury that it only needed to concentrate on one thing: promoting courses. It didn't have to worry about research, or open days, or on-campus activities. So to introduce into that a load of London-based campus activity seemed to make everything more complicated. So how content was handled became all important, because this could easily become a site of two halves, and users could easily land on it and be thrown the wrong idea of what they're looking for. In order to grow, we first had to streamline. This, I think, is where we take a stand. That if the website is to target prospective students, the teams that specialize in this should be leading it. It's not uncommon, I don't think, for universities to undermine the expertise within marketing teams. Quite often we're there to deliver other people's ideas, regardless of how feasible or not they are. Thankfully, the University of London's situation was such that it wasn't very difficult to make very easy strategic decisions. Speaking from the distance learning arm, where I was employed, we had around 400 pages of static or information-led content, including around 100 course pages. Over the last 2 days, I've realised that that really doesn't seem very much at all, compared to the figures I've heard. But still, that's 3 pages of additional information per course for an institution with no campus, accommodation, visas, or anything else to promote. And it was soon to share space with all the London-based on-campus activity once the sites were merged. It had to be compartmentalised, it had to be tidy. Tidy it was not. We had groups of vague categories, including our global reputation and community support and resources. We had closed loops that had users going round in circles. So this is where we embark on hands-off step 1. Qualitative audit, my guilty pleasure in life. Assess every page and determine its fate. Whether it needs to stay, whether it needs to go, move, adapt in some way. In this project, we determined that around 10% of pages could be scrapped outright. Around 5% could be moved or relocated to the student portal or elsewhere. And around 20% could be compressed into single pages or sections to reduce needless clicks and improve UX. If the maths doesn't appear to add up, that's because more satisfyingly, we crunched the core prospective student information into 4 really concise categories. How it works, how to apply, fees and costs, and funding your study. 60 pages was all it needed. Step 2, rewriting for purpose. So both of the websites that came together to form the new University of London site had a lot of contributors from departments across the university, a common theme, I think we can agree. Some of the issues that arose from this, as you may imagine, was inconsistency and something I term informational bias. Now, by informational bias, I mean that the content often reflects the work or objectives of the author's department rather than anything that's actually useful. So you had expressions such as examination diet, and my personal favourite, that great adjective, contribution towards the cost of study loans. That is another language to me, let alone a non-native speaker. So here is an example of informational bias in action. Assessment. So here, what's going on is that our governance team were getting lost in defining what assessment means, then explaining the principles of fairness policies that we have in place. Not sure students really care, I certainly didn't. Instead, they're asking 3 pointed questions. How am I assessed? Where am I assessed? When am I assessed? Much like this. So, what I was most keen to push was a strong rewriting exercise led by Writing for the Web principles. Copy needed to be brief, front-loaded, scannable, well signposted. The University of London receives a lot of small, generic, easily answered queries. It was my firm belief that we could reduce a fair percentage of those queries just through basic technique. Answer the main questions. For the old website, we received scholarship information in the style of a press release. Core details would quite literally be buried. We needed templates that identified immediately whether this award was relevant for a visitor, then answer the main questions in a glance. Am I eligible? What's this worth? How do I apply? The informational bias in this case was our bluster that distracted from the main questions. Then the plain English debate. So universities love to talk about plain English training. Now that's great. It's good for print, it's good for emails, it's good for operations, but I don't think it's enough for web. This colossal tome, which rivals Homer's Odyssey, is the entry requirements of one of the courses offered by distance learning. All 1,250 words of it. This was believed to be the route to clarity for students. This was the University of London's plain English approach. Here's the same in a quarter of that word count, achieving the same thing. That's the web writing approach, and that's a tough principle that we would not compromise on, which ties in neatly to culture shocks and buy-in. This, I think, is the pivotal stage of content governance. It doesn't matter what the intentions are, or the methods, or the success. Matter of fact is you're less likely to make progress without selling the principles to the organisation and getting buy-in for it. So at least people see what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. You may have to put noses out of joint to make breakthroughs. It's one of the most common questions that prevails around digital culture. How do you get across your point to stakeholders that may not be as informed or that determine that they know better? Do you use diplomatic means or demanding ones? Well, my experience was that the arguments for change were quite easy, but that you've got to back yourself and provide shed loads of reasoning. I was saying the other day, it's like the Richter scale. If you can provide 10 reasons for doing something, that's many, many, many times more effective than providing just 5. It goes on an escalating scale. More important than this, however, instrumental to our progress was a web steering group. This met every week while the redevelopment project was in full swing. It was a space to voice concerns and issues with a group of digitally literate and invested people. Now, all departments were invited, not all of them showed, but what this did was it gave the group a soft mandate to make decisions in the best interests of the project and then carry them through. And it provided a united front to stand behind its decisions. What culture shocks did we bring about? At the University of London, split ownership of content created all manner of problems, which I'll touch upon shortly. It was a governance nightmare. Starting with a clean slate was the ideal way to implement best practice, which involved a lot of streamlining. But this encourages better behaviours. So current students were often relying on the website rather than using their portal or virtual learning environment. Staff were reliant on the website for all their informational needs. That's not what it's there for. And veering away from documents. It's one of my biggest bugbears. Everything had to have a document. And the terrible practice of linking between documents caused a colossal number of breakages once all the pathways changed overnight. So we strove to keep only those that had value as documents, either because of length or because of design. and aim to convert all of the rest into web pages. Now, interestingly, that, of all matters, is where management started to take notice. Documents. So we had to be punchy with a statement of 7 reasons why we should abandon PDF culture. That was also a surprisingly hard sell to colleagues and the university's colleges until that issue of maintenance was made clear. So, it's relatively easy to edit a web page. By contrast, editing a PDF, sourcing the editable document, then editing it, then converting it, then compressing it, then sending it to your web team to upload, then replacing the original file. It's an awful lot longer. Also, clear that a substantial number of breakages would begin, and this would help to safeguard against that problem in the future. Not always, but often, confidence can beat a culture shock. The issue we face with web redevelopment projects in particular is that we're not blessed with the gift of foresight. Nobody knows for certain how they will perform. Until enough time has passed to gather meaningful data, you're acting on instinct. Yes, you're using best practice principles, and ideally, user testing as well. But it doesn't provide any guarantees once your project is released. So confidence in what you're doing is all important. Preparing people for something new is tough, getting buy-in is tough. As this paradigm shift continues, it remains part of our collective responsibility to make it happen as far as we can. So, step 4, managing content. Said a few moments ago, content governance had been a nightmare. The distance learning website alone had over a quarter of its workforce, plus the dozen self-governing institutions that design and direct the courses. We couldn't agree a common language or many common templates. What this led to, as you imagine, was issues such as apathy. Some owners just didn't care. It was outside of their job description, or they didn't check stuff thoroughly. Continuity. When a quarter of your workplace owns content, staff turnover means there's a constant transfer of ownership, which is often forgotten during handover. Inconsistency. So many different contributors creates a variety of style and substance. Thus, we create inconsistency in technique and messaging. Inefficiencies. It was hard to administer our annual audit because of the number of personnel involved and constant changes. And a result of all of the above, things fall behind and out of date. Even though the organisation ran a full website audit each year, that was offering little guarantee that content was reviewed properly. Another key issue was that the majority of content owners were not skilled in writing for the web best practice. Many are trained in plain English, but I don't think that's enough. Many are drawn into informational bias, which is poor practice. The idea of arbitrary ownership was not working. It created barriers to change. So a major goal after the new website launched was to streamline content governance. The reduction in the number of pages meant that we could cut the number of page owners in half very easily. We also recommended that the content specialists who managed the project should remain editorial privilege. By this point, we'd earned the confidence to have that agreed. It was the last act before I jumped ship. So lesson 5. Now, it's not often that I turn to Sir Lord Sugar for inspiration. But he did once say on Series 5, Episode 2 of The Apprentice, that if there's a profitable venture, a couple of complaints could be accommodated. Yes, expect complaints. People can find new things tough. They can find modernisation tough. And the University of London, which is an old, established, prestigious brand was at risk of just becoming too old-fashioned for 21st century digital learners. So you'll inevitably hear the question, I don't know who's responsible for writing this page in this way. Another favourite, this doesn't work for me. That's probably because it wasn't designed or written for you. At the end of the day, there's no point in investing in a new website only to maintain the same practices that rendered the old one unfit for purpose. It takes some time for staff to get used to, and as we saw with the Lord of the Rings gifts earlier, you may not get the thanks for it. Content governance is often, I think, a thankless task and a thankless labour of love. That's why it's a pleasure to be here today to share with those who understand this challenge. It may seem like this has been a bit of an easy, straightforward ride here. Perhaps it was. So it's time for a curveball. A battle that could not be won. Battle of the Five Armies, maybe. The University of London is a federation of well-known self-governing colleges, including LSE, King's, UCL, Royal Holloway, Goldsmiths, Birkbeck. Each of these makes a contribution for membership, and there are things that they expect from that. One is the referral traffic they were used to getting from the london.ac.uk website. That had dropped quite markedly. So we thought, because the site was doing a good job, you can be victim of your own success. Equally, how users choose to respond can change. If they arrive at london.ac.uk and realise it's not LSE, they'll probably Google LSE. They'll not scour our website until they find it. But that didn't matter to some of the colleges. They see referrals go down, they expect us to restore that. So Top Brass asks us to find a way to increase outbound referral traffic because the colleges are the most important clients. We were asked to get people off our website. So the real test of the project, it seems, is how we responded to such a bizarre request. And we did this by amending search, which nudged up cautiously outbound referral traffic, but also, by pure serendipity, boosted engagement around our own course pages. Honours even, this time. It just reminds you, it's ours. Fine, but it could be snatched away from you at any time. So in summary, I have some of the power. Know your content. It goes without saying, the better you know your content, the more streamlined and effective your new information architecture will be. Anticipate the culture shocks. It's next to impossible to prepare for everything, but you may be able to do enough to stop these gaining momentum. Demand writing for the web training, because even if staff aren't interested, it at least introduces them to the principles that are being followed. Establish a steering group, if you don't have one already, that can either benefit engagement or make decisions. And push hard for the winnable battles. There will be some that you can never hope to win. So it's worth the push to ensure that those you can win, you do. So I wish you good luck to you all in yours. Thanks.
Another fantastic presentation. Has anyone got any questions?
Would anyone from the front few rows like to ask a question? There's a gate over there.
Hi, Jane from Birkbeck. Well done surviving the process. And thank you very much for the presentation, very interesting. I just had a question about your PDF policy, because I think probably every university is going to be up against a raft of files. How do you deal with things like, is your policy that you're actually not having PDFs anymore because you have concerns about it? In which case, how do you deal with things like regulations and stuff that actually can't be rewritten for the web?
Okay, so the loose policy was retaining documents that had value as documents, either in terms of length, which regulations would fit, or in terms of documents that were professionally designed and had some value that way that couldn't be replicated on a web page. It's taken time to adapt, but what we tried to start doing was adding documents to the website audit spreadsheet as well, rather than just having the pages and assuming that any documents linked to within those pages would be maintained and monitored by the owner of that particular page. Often that information was provided from somebody else completely, so it was all being overlooked. And it seemed a good governance procedure that once these are web pages, we can assign them owners more easily and have them maintained and looked after. No formal policy as such. It was very much a demanding agreement that we put forward, and one that we were able to carry. I think if complications arose, we'd have to then look at a more exacting policy that determined exactly what could and couldn't fit into those descriptions.
Thank you. I remember in 1999 or 2000, Andrew Erd, who was the web manager at Goldsmiths College and then moved on to King's College London, stood up, gave a presentation at one of these conferences. He has a policy that's going to go to the committees, no PDFs. He left shortly afterwards and was never seen again.
I left shortly afterwards too.
Although I'm not sure if you'd see you again, no matter how far you ran. Sorry. I'm wondering, examination diet is one of my least favourite terms in the world as well. How far did you get in terms of killing off bizarre phrasing like that, and did you get resistance from the Latin-speaking people upstairs?
Remarkably little. Notional study hours is another. I'd studied at 4 universities and worked at 3, and I'd never seen some of these phrases in use before. And I think it's a form of informational bias. It's a subconscious thing that comes through from either HEFCE regulations or other regulatory bodies, and it filters its way directly into the language that we use. But I found that just changing that to examination sessions or study hours and explaining more of the process, or putting in expectations in brackets, 12 to 14 hours per week, was an easy way to solve the problem. I think I was seeing some sound bites going through that from, I think, Paul's workshop yesterday, maybe, that you can push things and wait to see if people complain, sort of asking for forgiveness afterwards, rather than asking those questions and offering the opportunity for dissonance to come up. But more straightforward than you'd think.
So if we can say thank you again to Keith. I think now there should be coffee waiting for us outside, so we will be back here in half an hour. Half an hour, perfect.
Thank you. Right, I think we'll get started. So welcome to our final session of the day, which I'm chairing. Carly tweeted earlier that actually weirdly chairing seems to be more slightly panicky than speaking. I think I'm going to actually agree with that. But we do have a wonderful, wonderful speaker for you, and we do have a session on the future of IWMW to cover with Brian, which for those of you who've been last year does include the return of IWMW Bingo, which is far more fun than it sounds. But before we do that, just a couple of announcements. Please don't forget to complete the evaluation form. It is really, really useful for us. It helps us inform what we do going forward. It lets us know what type of things we do. And we pass the feedback from that on to the speakers. So it's really useful in terms of letting people know and validating and helping to encourage people to speak more. I mean, obviously, all you need to do is put in my name and say it was wonderful. But if you do want to write about other speakers as well, you are welcome to. We do have two people who have yet to turn in their door keys for their rooms. So the admin announcement section, could James Keaveney and Gareth Lewes please remember to hand in their key before they go if they're still here. You can do that at the reception bit out front. You don't have to go back and look sheepish in front of the security guard. The reception will take it. And similarly, don't forget that if you've got your lanyard badges and you don't want to wear them on the train back to London or Scotland or wherever, then you can also hand them in at reception, or you can frame them and mount them on your wall. I think that's pretty much all of our pre-announcements, so without further ado, I think I would like to introduce Jenny Taylor. Jenny Taylor is the Deputy Head of Digital Communications at Cardiff University. She was a newbie last year. She has kindly volunteered to speak, which is awesome because I spent several nights in the pub with her last year complaining about bad content on websites and nodding along happily to all her suggestions. So hopefully this will be good. I did ask her about the crown that you see on here. This is apparently going to be presented to one of the winners of the Eisteddfod competition this year. And it was designed by a contemporary jeweller and also was done with their chemistry department, but I'm sure she can tell you more. So without further ado, I will give you over to Jenny.
Hi, and just bear with me. Sorry, let's just connect there. There we go. Hi, hello. If any of you do leave during my talk, I will hunt you down and kill you, so we'll just get that bit over. That's fine. I'm Jenny. I am Deputy Head of Digital Communications at Cardiff University. This is a bit about me. You don't need to read it all, but I'll stand near the mic, sorry. But I just want to close a little loop first off and just say our first talk was by Alison, who was my manager at Bath. And in Alison's talk, she talked about cheerleading. Alison's been my biggest cheerleader, and I won't be here without her. So I think that's kind of a nice loop of the conference. So. Also, I do have to say that what's been really nice about this, and kind of, my talk's called Resurrecting the Content King, because I feel that maybe content's been left behind a little bit. And actually at this conference, a lot of pesky speakers keep talking about content, which is fab, and I don't know whether it disproves my point, but there we go. So what's the problem? What's my problem, I should say? So Jeffrey Zellman, he's the founder of A List Apart. He wrote a really, really interesting article recently called The Cult of the Complex. And he talks about how we've become this industry that extols innovation over customer satisfaction. Now, I think over time we've lifted innovation to the peak of desirability. So if you're not continually demonstrating your mastery of all these complex frameworks and tools, then you're not relevant. And I also think, and this is where I may get a bit controversial, and all the designers and developers and UX people in the room may hate me, I do love you. So please don't take what I'm about to say next to heart too much. But I think those elements, like design and development and UX and SEO, I think they've become fashionable. They kind of have this air of mystery and of coolness. You can't describe what they do as easily as you can describe what I do. You need another language to describe what they do. They're kind of the people who work in shipping containers. They sit in coffee shops, places where they only serve food in a shoe. Now, and the problem is, and the thing is, I think what they do is great, and it's brilliant, and we need it for what we do. And it's okay that we all think that's good, but the mindset is catching. So the people that we work for, the people we want to work with, our stakeholders, they've picked up on this cult of complexity. Applying cool designs or cool frameworks or making a bloody app becomes more and more desirable. They feel like we're moving with the times. I have to put my walking stick down. Apparently having my walking stick makes me look more credible. Do we agree? This is some kind of, I'm going to go rogue. If I fall over, someone come get me. But it's like, by using these frameworks, we're moving with the times. We're becoming more progressive. We're digital. I did use inverted commas, because that's what makes us digital. And there's this idea that shiny new layout. Does anyone ever get given wheels or compasses or get told, I want content in 4 boxes on the page. I want these 4 boxes on the page, and that's what will solve all of our problems. It just becomes more important. No one's talking about the content. When you go to these people and ask them for the content that's going to go in the 4 boxes, deathly silence. So I think that content, if it was a car, it would be a Honda Jazz. It's which best car, it's efficient, it's cost effective, it's simple and straightforward. It is not going to make you look hip or cool. But it's waiting in the corner while you figure out all the fancy frameworks that you're going to build to present it in. It's never really changed. And the only time it got remotely complex was when content strategy came out and everyone was trying to figure out what on earth that was. What did it mean? What did I do? How do I implement that? Now I think, if I'm going to put it really simple, from my perspective, it's basically publish the right content to the right people at the right time, in the right place, and preferably using the right words. That's what I think content strategy really is. That was a specific pause to make you all just take that in. I really appreciate it. I talk fast. If I go too fast, somebody wave a hand, I will try and slow down. But my problem, content, it's created at the wrong time. It's written by the wrong people. It's made with the wrong aims or no aims in mind. And it's published with no plan of how it's going to be promoted, how it's going to be managed, how it's going to be archived. and it's seen as secondary to its hipster design and functionality cousins. It's getting squeezed. Now, I wonder if this project timeline might look a bit familiar to some people. So here's all your time to do your visual design and to work out your functionality, have all these questions and conversations in meetings about how it's going to work, what it's going to look like, what it's going to do. Then you get the bit when we talk about content. This is the bit when you go and try and get some content from people, or you try and get them to write this content. Then there's this bit at the end. And actually, the fixes in this bit are really important, because the designers and developers didn't have a clue what they were making it for, because they didn't have the content. So now you have to go back and fix it, because now you do have the content. You've realised that what you built isn't fit for purpose in the first place. Frustrating. So, I'm going to say this, I am not the only one who thinks this. If Christina thinks this, then I'm in, I'm okay, I'm on the right track. And I just love this, I have to say this. Maybe AI will fix it, runs away, jumps in the ocean. Like, yeah, it is. How is it that we're getting to this point in 2018 when big companies, and we are big companies, are leaving content to the end of the project? How is that happening? But it is. And I'm sure it's happening for a lot of people out here, a lot more people than just me. And then I'm going to add another problem to this. And now, initially, I have to just tell you that initially when I wrote these slides, I did a really unfortunate typo, and I put this down as the cult of productivity. And my boss pointed it out and said, productivity is a good thing. I'm really happy if you're all productive. Thanks, Graham. Thank you for that one. If you haven't read Jay McGovern's book, A Rebel's Guide for Digital Transformation, I'd totally recommend it. Jay McGovern says lots of very clever and very good, important things that we should be doing. But he talks about how most organisations still reward employees based on how much they produce and how long they spend producing it. We reward them how much they please their managers. And when that pleasing relates to digital, it often involves the production and publishing of stuff the manager wants published, or the manager's manager. Everyone know where that route goes. And I think how many times we're asked to do this because somebody tells them their manager says they should, or because we can't think of a reason not to, or because I think sometimes people think if they keep adding to their web pages, it's just going to solve all their problems. And also, it's just a really good place to put PDFs. You know. And I want us to be content first, but this bit, this is like content first went bad, really bad. So why is it important? Why does it matter? Because content is the #1 reason users visit your website. They do not come for design. They do not come for functionality. They come because they want an answer. Users want two things. You know, we all do this. You either go to a website because you're looking for information, you're looking for an answer, or you go because you're sat on the toilet and you're looking for something to inspire you, you know? You're up at 4 o'clock because all of the drunken people that got home at 4 a.m. woke you up, and you're looking for things to inspire you, you know? Where's Kevin? No, it was him. And, you know, I'm mixing my metaphors here, but websites are primarily a vehicle for content. That's what they're there for. And when content leads design, as well, I'm just going to say this, when content leads design, we save time, because our amazing designers and developers know what they're building for, and they know what they're designing for. So, you know, no guesswork. And I have to tell you this is from Alison. I said this afterwards, I was like, I'm going to say the same thing, but there is no easy answer. There is no easy answer, and I wish there was a process that we followed through steps, and it would just sort it out, and we'd be content first, and we would get our content from our stakeholders, and it would all be fine. There isn't an easy answer. We need to win people over. We've got to convince them that content can solve their problems. We've got to show them the benefits of good content. We've got to make it worth working on, and we have to help them. This is where we have to join them and work with them. And what I'm going to do now is go through like 5 things that we've done at Cardiff that I think are trying to do this. Some of them are big things, some of them are really small things, so please don't be disappointed, but they're just little things, and sometimes it's the little things that work. So first off, you need to make your content valuable. You need to show its value. If they think it's valuable, they're going to spend time on it. So something we've been doing, we have recently, it worries me sometimes how recently some of these things are when we think we weren't doing this before. We have been working with our undergraduate recruitment team on some digital marketing campaigns. And something that we did following that was to pull together all of our stats, we're doing really good tracking, and actually show them which types of content are effective. So if we use this really interesting student tour video, we get a 1.6% click-through rate. If we use a really, what to most students is a dull picture of the city, we get 0.35% conversion rate. And by just starting to show those stats, we can start to say to people, hey, do you know what? Building those ads, this isn't something we're going to do quickly. This isn't something that someone's just going to go in and pick up an odd image and just throw in. We need to think about this and we need to spend time on it. We also then, so something we did with this campaign is, in the past, any of our digital campaigns just used to take people through to our open day webpage, which obviously is not tailored for anybody. It's meeting a purpose for lots of people. So we created landing pages. And we looked at our different segmentation and we said, okay, in this one specific group, we're targeting students from London. I knew it was going to do this. Apologies. I'll try and get my password right. There we go. And we tried to think of content that would appeal to students from London. So Cardiff is cheap. We are one of the most cost-effective cities. London's really expensive. Come and study here. Put all these messages together in a landing page, and we showed that when we A/B tested it, the students, the leads that we sent through to our landing pages got a much higher conversion rate. There again, there's value. We can show that that conversion was much cheaper than sending them straight to the website. The next step of this is trying to work out our ROI. So we could look and say, we know from how many students book on open day, how many students then make applications, then how many students come to the university. And for each student that comes to the university, there is an amount of money that they basically make us. You know, we can look at their fee amount and the money that comes into the university. We can then work that back and come up with an amount of money that is effectively the value from a booking on an open day. So we can say, for each one of these bookings that we did through this campaign, this is how much that booking is worth. And then we can show them ROI. And that's what we're trying to do. And do you know what? The return on investment that we did for this, I'm going to say, it was like 1,000%. It's crazy. And we didn't spend very much. It's our first, it's our first campaign. And if there is anything we'd like to do a bit more advanced, is probably work out for those who booked on the open day online, how many of them actually turned up. We need to get a bit better with our data. But using that data, it starts to show people the value, and they start to go, hang on a minute, the value of doing this and doing it well, here's the value. Sorry, Tom Cruise is just going a little bit wild in the background, isn't he? So, slightly more drastic way of making your content valuable, put it behind a wall, stop people doing it. So at Cardiff, we did a web transformation project, 2013 to 2016, 3 years, and during that process, we decided to put workflow across all of our content. We don't put it on news because we don't want to get in the way of, obviously, the news cycle, but it's across all of our content. So any devolved authors, we had 800, we're now at 450. You can see we're slowly trying to turn the tide. But any author has to apply for approval on their content, so they have to submit it for approval. We give them information about what they need to do in order to get it approved, so it needs to have a clear purpose or an action, it needs to be relevant to the reader and their needs, and if it is not, it will get rejected. Now, when we first did this, there were lots of people who were not happy about this at all. I had some really intense conversations with people. But it's working. It is showing people that because they can't do it easily, this is important. It's so important that we're willing to put one member of our team every day on a rota approving pages. And it's hard, isn't it? It's hard. It's a bit dull sometimes. But it's so important. And I think it's such a good way to show value. This is our approval list. This is what it looks when approvals come into us. We have different asset statuses. If people are submitting pages that have never been published before, and they're submitting, say, more than 2, then we ask them not to go through this. We ask them to come to us via Web at Cardiff, our support. I'm so used to saying them, like, Web at Cardiff, email us. We send it via support. And again, we're saying to them, look, if you're going to make a load of content, come and talk to us first. We're not going to do it through approvals. Have this conversation with us, because it's so important we get it right from the start. So why is it that writing good content is so hard? I don't know where to start. Does anyone, get this? It's like, we're often, I don't know if you get this, you're asked to start a project or create a section of your website. And they tell us it's really urgent, so we go away and do it, and then nothing happens. Nobody puts anything in it. It's just empty. And then you go back to it 6 months later because you forgot about it, and you're like, hang on, why is this website still under construction? It's got nothing in it. But they never did anything. And I think there's a part of it when you delve down into it, it's because they don't know where to start. They suddenly get faced with it, and it's scary. How do I write this content? How do I create it? And then you get this one. It's already been signed off. It's got to go up exactly as it is, because somebody else at a senior level, has a committee, have gone through and said, this is what it should look like. This is what it should read like. And the devolved author, the person in that department, who is probably working really hard, they've got all this other job to do, and they're given this piece of content and said, put it up. put it up exactly like this. And they don't feel like they have the power to kind of, change that or to make changes to that content. And the other thing, this is my favourite one, it just needs to be there somewhere, I don't really care. Tick in a box with putting my PDFs on my website, which, it's, there's not really much to say about that, is it? It is, this is what people want. I need to put it on the website somewhere, that will solve our problems. We're doing a project, if there's something about it on the website, then we're all good. So, to kind of solve these problems, I think we have to get out there and I think we have to help people write. And I think there's lots of different ways we can do that, but some of the things we've been doing, something we want to do more of and trying to do more of is do workshops with people, get them in a room. So we have an intranet, we have an external website, we also created an intranet for staff and an intranet for students, and the intranet is very task focused. Getting people in a room and trying to work out the steps of a task and getting them to use post-it notes or whatever to go through the actual steps that people take. Because when these experts, these subject matter experts, write that content, they skip steps because they know what they're doing. So getting them in the room, helping them out, pulling it out, getting the topics, you're already beginning to help them write because they've got the thing they want to write about and they've got the structure. Something else we've been doing more of is pair writing. We're trying to work with our stakeholders. So we've paired up with our senior comms officers. We have senior comms officers for research, for engagement, for innovation in the colleges, and we're working with them to create content. And often one of their problems is that they do have content that's been signed off by very senior members of the University Executive Board. It's very important, it can be quite political. One of the examples of this was, I don't know if any of you went through this recently, was the need to be open about a Vice-Chancellor's salary. I used to work at Bath. That was unfortunate for them, wasn't it? But they kind of led the flood for the rest of us. So there was content that had to go up. So I worked with Kevin, who's one of our senior communications officers, and we knew we had all this dry content. The executive board wanted one specific thing. Please don't read this, it's really dry and boring. But the executive board were very keen that we said certain things and messages. And Kevin and I knew this was a difficult thing. It wasn't going to be the most easy thing. So we sat down and we did it together. And we met with people from HR, we got all the facts that we needed, we sat down. And by sitting with someone, and perhaps not so much in this case, but when you sit with someone, you can turn around to them and go, I don't get it. I don't get what it is that you're trying to tell them. And when that person is from finance or HR, whatever, they can tell you what they mean. And then when they explain it, you can sit and write, you can type, you can talk, you can delete, you can do it again. And I think working in pairs is so effective. Something else, actually, quite a nice byproduct of this, I think, is that we've got much closer relationships now with our comms team, and we have a much better idea of what it is they're trying to achieve and the problems they have. So this, one of our small sort of examples. The other thing, and it's really obvious, but get in the room. So we run training for our CMS system, we run writing for the web training, which is all great. What we started doing is running top-up sessions. We call them top-up sessions, drop-in sessions. We advertise them across the company Yammer to all of our Squiz authors, and these sessions could literally just be on images. So people drop in and we do a session where we talk about images and we talk about best practice and what kind of images we should use and how to upload them. Or we might have a session on writing news articles. And it's so much more informal, and we're in the room with these people and we can have these conversations. So my colleague Lindsay, who sat just there, I'm going to point you out, just to embarrass you. Lindsay recently, so one of the communications officer who works with student support arranged a day, we can't take credit for this, they arranged this, we just went along, but they arranged a day where they've got loads of devolved authors, and this time of year, because they're not doing counselling for students, they're not supporting students, they go, we must update our web pages, and it happens every year, and we drown under all of these requests. So she set up a day, got them all in a room with laptops, and said, right, we're going to edit our content today. So we said, well, we'll send one of our content producers. And Lindsay was there, and one of the things she said when she came out was, I think they really appreciate why content's so much more important. And I think they appreciate why we're doing approvals. And because when people asked her, when they were sort of saying to her, this is what I want to do, and when they could sit and have a conversation about it and why it was important, what it should be about. So, I think that's just a really effective thing to do. The other thing we want to do, and we haven't yet done, but is to start going and having drop-in sessions at academic schools. So we're going to get a little pop-up banner, go and sit on a chair, advertise it and say, we'll be in your school, come and talk to us. Do it in professional services, come and talk to us. Come and tell us your stories. Come and tell us what it is you want us to write about. Because I think to go forward from where we are now as a university, I think we've done so much change over the last few years, but to move forward, we need to take our stakeholders and our staff with us. And I think that's so important to us. We've done a lot. They're starting to get a bit convinced about what we do, but I think we really, really need to bring them with us. So we need to get out there and be a bit more, we need to communicate more with them. So, anyone having a heart attack because I just said this? Anyone disagree? I'm not advocating putting FAQs on your website. I'm just going to go say that straight off. If anyone tries to put FAQs on my website, I'm like a wildcat and hunt them down with claws. But this method, this was kind of an accident. So the finance office came to us with a list of 10 FAQs for student fees. So they had done an amazing amount of work. They'd worked really hard. They'd gone through all of their email inquiries and they'd been recording all of their phone inquiries and writing down what the subject of that inquiry was. Then look how who didn't change their laptop? Gareth can just sit under here and just move the mouse every now and again. Sorry. That would be weird. We won't do that. So they had this list of 10 FAQs, and then they asked us to put it on the website, on the intranet. Like, why wouldn't you? Current students, questions about fees, put your 10 FAQs on the website, and we're like, oh, okay. So then I started looking at the document that they sent us. So one of the first questions, and one of the things they said to us was, we get loads of phone calls, everyone keeps ringing us. So I looked at this, sorry, aren't I good at drawing? Sorry, Kevin, I know. Everyone can draw, right? How do I find out how much my tuition fees are, when I need to pay them? So the correct answer, I should be pointing this way, not this way, but it's to log into your Sims Online account when you're a current student, log into Sims Online. On the intranet, what did it say? Contact the fees office. That was one of their pages, so, that's why they're getting all these phone calls. So when we actually started to look through this list, we started to figure things out. So we looked at the current usage of the tuition fee pages, we explored the searches relating to the pages, things people were searching related to fees, what were people searching for when they were on the fees pages, and then we went through the FAQs and we compared them with the live intranet pages. And we found there was issues that could just be resolved by better signposting. Some pages had out-of-date information, let's update the information. And then we use funnelback, so we could add creations to search to promote fee content. Going to do this so it doesn't go off. All of a sudden we've solved the problems and we didn't put the FAQs on the website, but we'd solved it. And from that it was this happy accident that we could then say, okay, we need to do this with other people. So when other people come to us, say, right, do you know what, I would like you to go away and do a project, come back and tell us your 10 most frequently asked questions. Because in that instance, they are frequently asked questions. When you put them on the website, they're not frequently asked questions, because how do you know your question is frequently asked? That's my problem with it. But using that was this amazing tool for us to be content first. Instead of being this tool, this solution, we'll create a new page, we'll just stick this up, it was going back to being content first, but really working with them to help them do that. And actually by showing them the value, we can now, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's something we've done quite recently, see the reduction in their inquiries, see the reduction in people getting lost on the pages, then we know we're winning. And lastly, I'm coming to the end, we need to tell stories. I think going content first doesn't mean we can't also be forward thinking and that we can't be inspiring. Just because we're the Honda Jazz of the car world and we don't serve our scampi and slippers, that doesn't mean we can't inspire people and we can't tell really interesting things. We are the storytellers. We are the profile raisers. That's what we all are. That's what we do. And I think we're also the filters of all the boring stuff. That's our jobs. So sometimes, you get the situation, if you think stories aren't being told at your institute, then you need to be the one to go out and find them. So in our case, we felt that our research stories weren't being heard and they weren't being told. We recruited a senior content producer for research, Alex, who's sat over there, he's going to wave as well. It's Alex's work. So he spent quite a lot of time working on a research content strategy and working out what we could do to support the wider university research strategy and how we could elevate the profile of our research. He's been meeting our academics, he's been beginning to tell their stories, and this bit gets a bit tricky because we got a cool tool. And it looks shiny, and it looks new, and it drinks expensive coffee, but this tool, what it does is allow us to tell our stories. So it's long-form content that we're producing. But what it kind of got to is that the functionality is not important. The aim is to make content. It's not about making it look good, but it was about content that needs to be shared. And I think that's something we've learned, is that going content first, creating content, it's about thinking about how it gets out to our users and how people are going to take that away and engage with it. So we started to create these research stories. And it's not going to be easy to stop it being misused already because people have seen it. It's shorthand, sorry, the tool that we're using is called shorthand, if anybody knows it. And I'll tweet the link later to this story if anyone fancies reading it. We wrote, Alex did this story about plastics pollution. We did it in time for World Environment Day. He went and interviewed 2 of our academics who do really interesting research into plastics, but he also interviewed a group of our students who are trying to campaign to get straws removed from the university. But so Alex has set up an editorial board with the comms officers. They're coming up with governance. They're coming up with sort of an edit. You know, they sit in just almost like a newsroom, really, coming and getting features and discussing it. But this is us trying to say, let's us go and tell our stories. Let's stop being the people who just get given content. We're going to start creating them ourselves. What I want to do now is basically show you that something that somebody else did. I'm going to end with something amazing that somebody else did. And I think if we are going to inspire people, we have to look away from what's been done traditionally with our institutes. This video was created by Western Sydney. They have a lot of non-traditional learners. It's very teaching focused. And their marketing manager, who's called Angelina Cortis, he wanted to sort of position them as being really proud of who they were. And he took this idea to leadership and said, no, it's too political, you're not doing it. And he pushed and he pushed and he pushed. And the Vice-Chancellor said, all right, but it's on your head. If this doesn't work, you're going to lose your job. Does anyone else need a minute? the feels at the end of a long conference as well. This went viral. So nearly 3 million views. And it positioned them as this university where people have life-changing experiences. It really chokes me up every time. But I think that this is what powerful content can do. Content isn't just about written words, it's our images, it's our videos, it's the quotes, it's our case studies. And I think it's in our hands to keep reminding our stakeholders of our capacity to create it and the importance that we do create it. I think that's so important. So, and finally, we can't bend to each other's wills, it's going to break us. Our stakeholders want us to bend, we want them to bend. We've got to find a new way. So we've got to sell the benefits. And I would say this, don't just be guardians of the style guide. I have a massive thing about capital letters, I bang on and on about it. But sometimes I have to remind myself that's not what it's about. It's important, but it's not what it's about. What's about is being creative. And we need to give more advice than just writing for the web. I think we've learned that it is really important. But we give them guidelines to say this is how to write for the web, and we get it because we wrote them. But for other people, they want to know how to write full stop. They want to know what to write. They want to know what to talk about, what to tell people. And I really genuinely think we have to get out there. We've got to communicate with them, make friends with our stakeholders and help them to know what to say and to know what these stories are that we should be telling. And I went to a talk back in York earlier this year in January, and Peter Slee, the Vice-Chancellor of Leeds Beckett, said, you have to make it work in a crazy culture. And he said it in a whole voice, but I can't do that. we are in a crazy culture. It is hard. It is hard. It's crazy. But I think there are so many talented people here. I've had some amazing conversations while I've been at this conference, and I think we are all fully capable of making it work. So I hope just a couple of little things might have inspired you to go away and think about the things you can do. Obligatory Steve Jobs. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Well, I'm glad that you talked for another couple of minutes. It's had me time to recover from that video. So, any questions? We've got time for 2 or 3 questions. So, any questions for Jenny?
Take that one if it's over there.
As always, by the way, name and institution first.
You can do the running. Run, Brian, run.
Hiya, it's Dominic from York St John University. My question is really around creativity and any tips you've got for encouraging people to put their head above the, and try and be creative with the copy that they're writing.
Yeah, I think sometimes one of the things I think that we don't do enough of is take people away from the office, like go somewhere different, like whether it's your stakeholders getting them out of their office or getting us away from our office. I think giving people an environment in which they feel safe to say stupid things. I think sometimes you have to feel that you can just come up with ideas and no one's going to go, oh, that's rubbish, or that's not. I think that's really important. So safety and maybe a different environment. I think it is, depending on who it is, I think, getting people in groups and just getting them to just come up with ideas, look at what other people have done. I know that's horrible and we shouldn't use that as it would be amazing if we could all just come up with these creative ideas without that. But I think sometimes looking at what other people have done, and look outside the UK, look at what businesses are doing, looking at brands that you think are really interesting and trying to get ideas about what they do. And then maybe do an exercise where you say, okay, money, no object, technology, resource, no object, what would we do? And then maybe start from there, because you can always scale it back a bit.
Hiya, Lauren, University of Edinburgh. Wonderful talk, Jenny. The content writers that you're meeting with, and that can sort of come in for your kind of drop-in sessions, are there people that you meet with one-off, or do you follow up with them? And if so, what are the challenges involved with, not just making a one-time thing where yes, the writing content's boring, how do you then follow up?
Yeah. So with the drop-ins, and this is, we're tending to notice that with the drop-ins we are getting some of the same people are coming back, and then something we're trying to do, slightly off point, but we're trying to reduce the number of devolved authors, and those people that show interest and keep coming back, they get pushed to the top of the list of maybe these are the people we need to cultivate, and these are the ones that we need to build relationships, build up their skills so that they can maybe take on tasks for other people or can become sort of super users or advocates. I think we use, so we have Yammer at work, so we have like a Swizz network, so we communicate a lot of stuff on there, we try and post things on there. We've started doing like short videos about the things we've done, the changes we've made, trying to do that to sort of just keep encouraging people. And more, we work a lot through a help desk, but we're trying to keep saying ring people, make conversation, because I think sometimes things come across differently in email, and the more conversations we have with people, and the more often we go and meet them, because then they see us as humans and not people they can just shout at on the phone, or people who are just trying to say no or frustrate them. So yeah, it's definitely that human connection, meeting them, following up with the different channels that we've got, the communications, and yeah, that's it is hard. Something we've noticed a big trend on is people who say, I need access to this system, and then don't edit it for 6 months. And so now we're also trying to really question why people should have access and kind of stop it before it starts. Thank you.
I'll finish with a question if I can, and as someone from the other side of that fence, your graph about needing the content first.
Yeah.
So we've been in a big rebuild cycle at the moment, and obviously we've got our design templates coming together, we've got all of that. So, but one of the battles we've had from our content teams, from our digital content teams, is them coming to us and saying, well, I kind of just need to see a wireframe of it, I need to see what it's going to look like before I can write it. So we get stuck in a vicious sort of cycle.
Yeah,
so how do we as designers and developers help them get out of that cycle?
You need to do it together. Like from the beginning bit, when you talk about requirements, you talk about what it is you're trying to do, there should be content people and designers and development in a room together. You should come up with all your requirements together. You should be able to go away with a list of tasks where you all have stuff you can start doing. And I think saying to people, I can't write it until I haven't seen a wireframe, I don't agree. Controversially, sorry, I don't know if that's of course you can, because it's not about the wireframe, it's not about the design. So maybe it's talking to the content people and saying to them, okay, but this page, this landing page, whatever it is you're building, what is it you want it to do? Because it doesn't have to be the finished content. Tell us what it is you want it to do, and maybe put that into what are the most important things that you need to say to people on this page. Write that down for us. Write us 4 or 5 sentences that is the most important things that people know. Write the micro content. Tell us what a button needs to do, what does the call to action. And I think, and show them my talk, obviously.
Well, we're definitely going to do that. So can we have a round of applause, please?
Thank you.
Input is changing.
I'm also really slow to leave anywhere, so this is a bit awkward moment.
So for our final session today, I will hand over to Claire and Brian to lead on this one, who will now amaze you with their technical skills.
How many co-chairs does it take to switch
exactly.
the sliders?
And I will drift into the background.
Oh, what's this magical thing that's appeared on the screen? This is IWMW Buzzword Bingo! So, hidden behind these 16 things, oblongs, I don't know what they are words that may or may not, well no they have, come up in the conference at some point. And your task is to reveal those words as me and Brian finish off the event. So tweet the words that you think might be on here and follow it with the hashtag IWMW Bingo, all one word. Okay? Does that make sense?
Is that a question? Oh, you got one?
No. He's just excited.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Our business case has been approved. Oh, yay! Business case may or may not be one. I don't know. So yes, so it's running now, so you can start. Yes.
Single words while it phrases as well.
Single words or acronyms. I wrote these. Oh my god. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we going to do the prizes?
Yes. Right. We'll start off with the prizes. So this is brilliant. Oh, and the winner is the person who gets the last one. Is that right? Who gets the most?
Ah.
Right. Okay. So there's some prizes.
There's somebody writing a bot over there.
So is Hannah Love still here? Yes. You've won a book. So don't forget to get that. Can the people who did the lightning talks stay behind after class? Because you've got a little gift. We'd like to give a little award to Caleb from Buckingham for being an amazing tweeter. So thank you. You get a book as well. Whoever wins the buzzword bingo will win a book. Right, so the quiz at the dinner was won by the burger. Okay. So I need the email addresses for everybody on your team, because you will be emailed a prize. The quiz team name, some were really rubbish, can I just say? Table 18. The team name goes to Teamy McTeamface, because that made me laugh. So I need your email addresses as well. And the logo quiz, it was a 3-way tie. So I had to do a random picker thing that we've been doing, and that actually did go to table 18. So I need your email addresses as well. So yeah, that's good. And we'd like to just give a little token to Keith MacDonald from Greenwich and Paul Kelly from York, who took some brilliant pics that we particularly liked. So you both get a bottle of wine. I think that's it. Prizes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and then people can leave. I know people have trains and the like to get. I'm emotionally drained, and I don't. And the thing is, I'm one of those people who has too many words on a PowerPoint because that's my crutch and it tells me what to say. And the only thing that's in my mind at the moment is toilet roll and bleach. It's really scary. Oh, those, no, anybody tweet those. So if I can just see what I was going to say. So last night I was in the pub, would you believe, chatting to Dominic and several people, and one of the things that Dominic from York St John said was, I've been to 4 of these events and it's really inspirational. I come to the event and I'm really fired up, and I go back to work on Monday and suddenly it all goes flat because there's all that, unanswered emails. Well done. Pay attention, please. It all goes flat and you've got things to do, and we all feel that. We're going to feel that, aren't we? We're going to have a bit of a dip, a post-festival dip, isn't it? But, we need to address that. And so I'm going to do the thing that I did last year, I recommended people to do last year, which was to get in touch with some of the new people. So I've decided I'm going to follow at least 3 new people on Twitter. I've been doing that as we go along. 3 new LinkedIn contacts. So LinkedIn, is it any use or something? I've found you get those alerts when people have got a new job, when people have left the job. It's a way of finding out a bit more about those friends that you've made and their professional aspects. I shall be writing some blog posts when I've evaluated synthesised the evaluation forms and taken some of the photos and the like. I'll be doing that on the IWMW blog, and I'd like to encourage you guys to contribute to the IWMW blog. We've had a number of posts before the event, but we're exploring ways in which we can make that more sustainable. And one thing I thought, there are 146 people registered for this event. Imagine you're content people, most of you. Are you capable of writing 1 blog post a year? Yeah? How about 1 a quarter? That will give us 500 posts for this time next year to look at, and that's the sharing. Or the sharing doesn't have to take place just in the bars and by the campus lake and the like. It can take place there. So one of the things Claire and I will be chatting over the next few weeks, few months, are things like the governance of the blog as a forum for the community. Then the other thing we spoke about, the advisor group spoke about, was the interest in regional groups. And I think it was about 80 people said, yes, they're really interested in regional groups. So we invited you to put your names and locations, and we've got that there. So we'd like to try and build on that. So about a week ago, Headscape, Chris Scott from Headscape, sent an email that says, we'd like to donate some money to the event because we think it's really great. So he says, here's £500. And I said to Claire, what could you do with £500? And she goes, I don't want to buy more bloody prizes. I'm going to take them all here. What can we do? And the idea that we had, we'll use these to pump prime the startups of regional groups. So there will be 5 £100 prizes. So what you have to do is to send an email to myself and Claire with your proposal. So it might be, I've been in touch with these colleagues from other universities, they've all signed up, we're going to do something, so we might give you till, say, the 1st of September to make the contacts, to say where your first meeting is going to be. We'll get those proposals. There'll be maybe 4 prizes for an actual regional group and maybe 1 for some support type infrastructure around a regional group. And for those of you, where's Duncan? A couple of years ago, Duncan wrote his great, where's the mouse gone? There's the mouse. The Life and Times of the Scottish Web Folk, and we heard about this. Carly, I think, mentioned this yesterday when she came to her first events and met Duncan, and Duncan was in this post, spoke about 2002 when he was at Canterbury and how this set up. So this is one of the things we'll be looking to do.
Yeah, and just on that note as well, it was by the board downstairs, where you've all put your stars, which is brilliant. And I was chatting away to a few people who said, it's really weird because all the people who are from the northeast have put their star under Yorkshire. Why not? So that's fine. So the regional group names are just a bit arbitrary, really. So you can basically form groups whatever you want. So years and years ago, When I was at Bradford, I was part of the North East one, and that was basically the North East and Yorkshire, and actually it did sometimes stretch over into Manchester, so you can make your groups whatever they want and invite whoever you want to, whichever one you want to do. So it would be good for maybe somebody to take the lead and kind of initiate a group meetup, and like we said, we have got some money to support that, be it, well, whatever you think best fits, so people's travel, lunch, coffee, whatever. So yeah, by the 1st of September.
Well, one thing that occurred to me was we're going to use that money for the travel of some of the guest speakers, the people that we heard speaking here or in the parallel sessions. We want to invite them down. So if you get a flood of invitations to say come here and talk around, that there's another possibility.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah.
It's worth mentioning a couple of suppliers who offer venues in London.
Yes. So, is Randall here? So part of this community are the vendors, and it's really great. They're here to listen, to talk about, you know, what our interests are and how that relates. So it's really great. It tends not to be the sales pitch about things that they can work with the community. And Randall and I have been talking about some of those opportunities that Wonder might be able to offer in a London context.
Yeah, sure. So, blimey. Wow. Yeah, it's been a great conference. Really enjoyed speaking to a lot of you. Sorry for those who I haven't. Yeah, ultimately we've got a new office which is in the Tower Bridge area. So for anyone who's London-based or who wants to travel to the area, we're more than happy to facilitate that within our new offices as a venue, as a regular venue. Not quite sure how to get the community spirit of it rolling yet, but if anybody's got any ideas, just feel free to give me a shout on Slack. I'm on the HE Digital Community Slack. And yeah, let's get it going. Anyone who's interested, let's see what we can do.
A show of hands. Who wants to come back to the event next year? Okay, I think we've got a business case there for running the event next year. And we've got a video of where we're going to be next year. It's exciting. And there's a bit of a teaser, so maybe shout out. If it was leaked to you over a drunken conversation last night, please don't interview.
You on both? We have one in here.
Oh, it's the Highlands. Well, that was really, really great. Or the others. Then, of course, we had the facilitators. And I get this a question I get every year. I could only go to 2 of the 13 or 14 parallel sessions. Can't you address that next year? If anyone's got a solution for that, you know, that would be really great. There was actually one of the things We didn't record any of the workshops. We didn't think that would be appropriate, but there were lecture capture facilities in all of the rooms. Whether we want to think about that for future events, so there will be more technological solutions to those things.
I think, again, that could be a good use for the regional groups. If there's any particular masterclasses or workshops that you think would be good at one of your events, again, you could put that in your kind of your proposal, and the money could pay for that travel or whatever.
Yeah. The other thing Claire and I were talking about was how great all of the staff around. The events company was absolutely fantastic. The conference office, the catering staff. Oh yeah, we had this. How many else? This is the embarrassing moment. Sharon, sorry, no, it's not that one. It's not that one. It's not that one. It's the other one. How many people found it difficult with the card lock going into the room because they put it in upside down because that things look like an arrow, doesn't it? Oh, isn't that great, that sharing? I thought it was just me. So yeah, there was a catering staff, the bar staff, everybody. It was really, really good. And the advisory group, the 9 members of the advisory group, it really gelled this year. We were working together, weekly Slack meetings for many weeks, lots of new ideas and feedback. That was really, really great. And Claire, you're a star. I love you. And I'm going to go to Saltaire, and we're going to have a few pints. We're going to have a special advisory group meeting in Fanny's pub, because that's absolutely amazing pub. Yeah, and all of you, because you're the community. You're the people who make it work. Oh, I should have said, and the lightning speakers, the things that we do which we didn't know were going to work and we're really worried about. The lightning speakers, that was really, really great. And you guys are next year's speakers, next year facilitators. We heard from Jenny. You go along, you think, this is great, I want to talk next year. You can do that. So thank you all, and see you online, and have a great journey back. Thank you.
Who's Donuts McGrewer? Ah, you've won a prize. So yes, come and get your prizes and safe trip home. I'm going to lie down and have a cry now.